Category 5 Cyclone Freddy to pass close to Mauritius today. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. The weather bulletin for February 20th. So Freddy finally reached Category 5 status earlier this evening on the 19th, and as we enter the 20th day of February, the storm is set to make its closest pass to Mauritius and could pass within 100 kilometers of the island as a Category 5 or high-end Category 4. In the Atlantic, it's 101 days until Atlantic hurricane season, and there's nothing really active here, so things are looking fine and quiet, which is good news. So let's go to the main areas that we're looking at now in the southern hemisphere. And first of all, though, the Western Pacific, still a 20% chance off the east coast of the Philippine Islands, gradually moving northeastwards and will die off fairly soon. A 50% chance now for another area of interest in the central southern Indian Ocean, which is following Freddy a little bit, but will end up curving out to sea. Ex-Cyclone Dingani is still alive to the southwest of Australia as a remnant, and Cyclone Freddy, of course, unmissable on this image, a Category 5 storm barreling towards the Mascarene Islands and past Rodrigues on the evening of the 19th. There it is, expected to continue southwestwards towards Madagascar, where it will make landfall on Tuesday, probably as a Category 4. So a serious situation with Class 3 warnings in effect for Mauritius, and the satellite imagery shows the worldwide view. Look out for any red zones which show high concentrations of rain. A few areas over the western part of Australia actually, and of course Cyclone Freddy quite clearly visible there. A rather small signature compared to what you might expect, but it is a rather small storm. Here's its progress in the last 24 hours as it passed to the north of Rodrigues, and you can see that the small island just missed out on the serious conditions of the storm. They probably got lower tropical storm force winds or close to that, and you'll see also it's passing not far away from St Brandon, a group of small islands to the northeast of Mauritius, and then it will head towards the main island of Mauritius itself. It won't make a landfall on any of these islands, which is the good news, but it will pass uncomfortably close to all of them. Here's the latest imagery from RAM showing that the storm might be flaking out a little bit, particularly on the southern side, but its eye is unquestionably extremely powerful and strong and clear there on this satellite imagery, with eye temperatures getting up towards 20 degrees Celsius. Cloud tops up into the -80s, extending high into the atmosphere, certainly much earlier today, although that has diminished a little bit in the evening hours. Still a very powerful looking storm, looking very good for its intensity, and will continue on a pretty arrow straight turn west-southwestwards. Sea surface temperatures around the world look like this. The central and eastern Pacific, temperatures looking decent. In the deep tropics, we're looking for 79 Fahrenheit or higher, that's 26 Celsius. That denotes conditions good enough for tropical cyclone development. The Atlantic generally doesn't really have much of that. The North Indian Ocean, the Arabian Sea here, you can see a few areas there in the deep tropics, but now to the southwest Indian Ocean, you can see just how warm those waters are there, 28 degrees at least, pushing 29 in quite a few areas. Where Freddy is right now, it's about 27, and will continue to remain decent. Wind shear is also down in the area. In the Australian region, very warm waters there, 28 to 29, and in the North Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal, around 27. Off the northern coast of Australia, still very warm there as well, 29 degrees, particularly along the coast of Kimberley and Pilbara provinces, and on the eastern side of Australia there, getting up to around 28 to 29 degrees Celsius, and 28 down in the South Pacific in the areas that matter there as well. Western Pacific in the deep tropical zones there, 28, a little bit higher up, 26, all the way up to Luzon, so we could certainly see tropical cyclone activity there where that invest is, but it is marginal. Well, that was a quick tour around the world, and the sea surface temperature anomalies look like this. The Western Pacific is above average, and that could count in its favour. But in the Southern Hemisphere, it's quite hit and miss actually, a few areas below average, but generally I think it's probably just slightly above, particularly in the South Pacific, south and east of Fiji. The La Nina still slightly there in the central part of the Pacific, but look out east, really getting warm near the Galapagos Islands. This could be the sign of an incoming El Nino. Oceanic heat content looking good in the South Pacific, north of Fiji and Vanuatu there. Very warm colours, but even the turquoises are enough for a significant boost for storm intensities. And it looks like we're losing it a little bit now near Guam in the Western Pacific. I did wonder whether it would last. That area, quite high latitude for the time of year, has a decent amount of oceanic heat content. GFS model out to 5 days. This is what it has in store for Freddy. There it is, moving west-southwestwards. GFS underestimates the storm, as do most models, and you can see that second system forming afterwards as well further east. It avoids the islands by quite some distance, so that's good news. GFS has hurricane equivalent conditions just off the northern coast of Mauritius, so at this point I would probably give it a 40% chance of happening, hurricane force winds along the coast of Mauritius. As for rainfall amounts, this storm is actually not producing very much rain compared to what you would expect from other storms. Chiniso, of course, being the last major storm that we had, was caused a lot of problems in Madagascar with very high rain amounts. Well, we're not looking at that amount for Madagascar this time, and certainly not for Mauritius and Réunion. You can see there only around 20 millimeters for Mauritius on the forecast, around 50 millimeters in Réunion, and on the coast of Madagascar near landfall we could be looking at some isolated amounts over 250 millimeters, and towards the west coast down to about 70 to 80. Along the coast of Mozambique though, a few areas of concern there as well. Into Zimbabwe as well, we could see 250 millimeters of rainfall over quite a large area as the storm makes landfall there. So in the longer range, that's day 5 through 10, you can see what's left of Freddy moving inland over Africa, really racking up the miles there, and the other system off to the east gets swallowed up by a frontal system down further south there, an extratropical cyclone in the very deep extratropical zone of the Indian Ocean. So after Freddy, that other system won't be any threat to land, and you can see that the ocean quiets down again quite considerably after that. Freddy's remnants, they might survive as far as Botswana maybe. We'll have to see how that goes. In the Australian region, day 5 to 10, there is an inkling of maybe 1 or even 2 tropical cyclones. There's one there hugging the west coast, north coast of Australia, and then that second one which has a stronger signal off the east coast, heading down towards the southeast through the Coral Sea off the coast of Queensland. That would certainly be the one with the bigger threat, but the other one on the left hand side might be one of those that we watch and wait, and it's really a guessing game whether it actually forms or not for quite a few days, and might deliver a lot of rainfall whilst it's at it. But that's all the serious stuff done. You can take a look at the Force 13 merch store by scanning the barcode and taking a look at all of our beautiful possessions, and are still waiting for Honade t-shirt. You can also request full season and individual storm animations on the merch store too. Well, in the Silly range, this is day 10 to 16, and we call it the Silly range because it's quite far out in the models and we don't really have much faith in it in the forecast at this point. Look at this. Potentially a triple tropical cyclone threat there, one off the east coast of the Philippines, one approaching Sri Lanka, and maybe something there in the middle getting up towards the coast of the Malay Peninsula, but it looks like it does lose steam after not so very long. But there is potentially 3 different systems, and if you saw yesterday's, a massive difference to what we were looking at, I think it was yesterday or the day before, with that storm striking Thailand, completely different tonight. The other system off the coast of Australia, that forecast hasn't changed very much, even though it's very long range, although it continues down south there, becomes a very powerful system really, and becomes extratropical, and then strikes the southern part of the South Island of New Zealand. So that is a complete change to what it had yesterday there in the extended track, where that was affecting the whole South Island. This one doesn't, it stays much further to the south and west and isn't as impactful. So that would be some good news, but still extremely speculative. That is 16 days out. You can talk about anything to do with the tropics and weather as a whole on our Discord server, discord.gg/force13. You're in good hands on there, and there's plenty of people talking about all kinds of things, but generally the conversation's about Freddy, of course. Well, a completely different situation on this day last year, 20th of February 2022. We had Cyclone Emnati peaking as a Category 4 on its approach to Madagascar. It was a little bit further north than where Freddy's going to end up, and eventually struck the coast of Madagascar. Still a fairly strong storm, but it had weakened by the time it got there. Today was the day that it peaked at Category 4 intensity as it gradually moved towards the southwest. Cyclone Emnati in 2022. Back to this year, and in the Atlantic, the first name on the naming list there this year is Arlene. In the Eastern Pacific, Adrian, and in the Central Pacific, we are still looking out for Hone, but it's still not showing itself anywhere. It's like a missing persons search, I suppose. In the Western Pacific, it's a Sanvu on the way, if we do get our next name from the current system or any other system. And in the North Indian Ocean, the next name on the list is Mocha. We've had 8 storms so far in 2023. The average per year is 92. In the Southern Hemisphere, Freddy being a Category 5 there. Herman is the next name on the Australian list. The Southwest Indian Ocean, it's Inala. And in the South Pacific, it's Judy. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow night.